Hey, hey, ladies and gentlemen, we are getting into another set of matches here. Hupsaiya versus Hamster. This is not the Elimination 3 match that is going to be played on Saturday. This is a preview of that match. We're going back to the 17th of April to find the last series of games that were uploaded between Hupsaiya and Hamster that I have on record at the very least. Maybe they played more in between then. I would find it hard to believe that they didn't, since they're pretty active players, but I will admit that Hamster has been a little bit out of practice by comparison. He's been trying for more games lately, so maybe he's going to rectify that, but I have sorted Hupsaiya as the favorite. We'll see how these particular matches go, but I would imagine that he is considered the favorite by most people who are watching and analyzing these games and thinking about them in that forthcoming playoffs match. But anyway, let's see how the practice went. It's going to be starting off on Impetus. We got 3 games to cast here. We'll see if we can bang it out all in one video. Hupsaiya in the top right, Hamster in the bottom left. Protoss versus Protoss. It's a mirror matchup, of course. Last couple of games, we had TVZ, we had PVZ, and of course, we always have TVPs. We got so many TVPs between people like EUD and Top Ramen, playing people like Eclipso and Pasarinho and Shambler. You know, there's loads of Protosses. You got Nude as well, who plays some Terran, and of course playing against people like Hupsaiya as well, who play some Protoss. But we're going to see how this mirror matchup looks. I'm trying to make sure that in general, in the last week or so, I cast all the different matchups that are in the game. Of course, that's going to get a lot more interesting once we add the 4th race later this year. More progress has been made to that effort, so we'll see how that one goes. And this is very early on in the Protoss versus Protoss mirror matchup sort of thought process. This is before a lot of developments had been made in that meta, where Hupsaiya had figured out, at least he's professed to have figured out, a counter to the Legionnaire spam that has chronicled a lot of PvP, and I'm not sure if we're going to see that here, or if that's going to be something that they developed later on. I know that he felt like Legionnaires were the main unit in PvP when playing against Eclipso, who is a more relative newcomer by comparison to these guys who've been around for at least since the last quarter of 2023. A little bit of a pause, but other than that, no worries. Now, when we get into this match, we do see 2-gate versus 2-gate, so it's kind of a mirror build right now, although Hamster's slightly further ahead in terms of the tempo. And it will be a Legionnaire first. We'll see if Hupsaiya accomplishes it, as yes, indeed, he obliges going for that first Legionnaire. In general, though, I have been liking how the mirror matchups have been developing. I have not been privy to every single game that's been played. In fact, we get way too many games played for me to be privy of those. In fact, on Discord, we tend to have people who stream their POVs when they play, and it can go on for upwards of 10, 12 hours. Sometimes it'll be longer than that, and it'll have been people who play, and then they leave, and somebody else picks up the torch and keeps streaming to the voice channels and stuff. It's really cool. It's a great little tight-knit community of a little more than 500 people right now, and we're just going to keep on growing. So if that sounds ideal to you, you want to see even more games, more gameplay, some FP VOD, so to speak, you can always join the server and keep watch for when those things happen. So Legionnaire versus Legionnaire seems to be the call for now. One thing that has been developed is, I think the Shambler likes to go for early Hierophants, maybe 2 Hierophants into Legionnaires or Zealots after, and that tends to give him the advantage in the early skirmishes, which can allow him to sort of anti-snowball the Legionnaires, where they don't get to a ridiculous number quite so fast. And I like this from Hamster. Interesting. He's going for a forward Warden to allow him to expand more safely. I wonder if that's something that had been considered by Hupsaiya. I do feel like maybe you could just attack it with the hostile Legionnaires and deal with it pretty easily. But maybe if you clump up around it, sort of forming a defensive phalanx of the Legionnaires, then maybe that stops it, because then they have to actually make contact with it, and even then they have to teleport around it. So you reduce the surface area so that they can't melee it as easily. It's going to be a fast Stargate, though, for Hupsaiya off of 1 base, so interesting stuff. As Hamster's already moving his Scry back down to his natural, it's pretty obvious he's thinking about taking that expansion. So we'll see what the Stargate can do. It's pure Legionnaire for Hupsaiya. At least 1 Zealot and 1 Ecclesiast have been spotted as Hamster does take that natural expansion. And I like the Ecclesiast moves as well. I do feel like this is before a bug fix was made to improve their reliability for their passive, but that was later pushed to release as well, so that is active in the current tourney version. So they might look a little underwhelming here compared to where they actually are in the tourney version, but we do indeed have a Gladius coming. The Gladius, a pretty good choice for dealing with like the longer the battle goes on, the stronger it gets, as long as it hasn't been evicted from the general range of the field. Second Warden coming as well for further defense, as Hamster will be ahead economically. 14 Legionnaires moving across the map. And we don't have nearly as many units in general. I was going to say melee units, but just army in general. The army size is favoring Hupsaiya, but the quality should be better for Hamster. The question is, will those Zealots be able to survive the coordinated pokes of the Legionnaire? Especially if this Warden has time to finish before the attack comes in. I feel like Hamster should be in a good spot, but he will need to respond to the air units threatening from that Stargate. There is a second Gladius already on the way. One Legionnaire pokes forward and does see, indeed, that there is a second Warden. So Hupsaiya wants to test his luck. One of his units taking some hull damage. Remember that Protoss have flash shielding in Cosmonarchy, so that means that 2 seconds after taking damage, they will regenerate shields at a rate of 10 per second. So it's 4.5 seconds to get your shields back on a Legionnaire. Well, 6.5, because you have to count in the 2-second delay. And that's also why, like, damage over time effects and crowd control and stuff can be really useful versus Protoss, because it adds a further delay before the damage actually starts to be healed. So you can imagine anything with the Terran Apollioid Adhesive cornerstone, where basically they apply an armor rend, but also a damage over time. It doesn't deal that much damage. It's like, I think it's guaranteed 2 or 3 damage or something like that. But it still is dealt over time, which means that the shields don't regenerate as much. So Protoss start to fear the fire a little bit. One Legionnaire being sent across on an informational gathering sort of move. He might end up catching the Gladiuses here. I feel like he probably will. Well, he does move his head over there for just a moment. I'm not sure if it was fast enough to catch, because vision updates very quick in Cosmonarchy. You can tell that as the units move around, the vision sides change a lot faster than they do in StarCraft 1. We made it so that you got to be a little bit more on the ball to see units move around. It's not effectively random when the vision update actually impacts gameplay, right? People have noticed that, like, for example, if you do scanner sweep in StarCraft 1, which is not a thing in Cosmonarchy, but if you use it in StarCraft 1, there's like a chance that you end up with, say, 5 seconds of coverage instead of 10 or something, based on how quickly the vision updates. So the Gladiuses are going to charge forward. We do have a defensive Warden and a defensive Matrix, the Matrix being useful for, keeping the shields going for the other units, but it's slightly out of range now. Okay, now it's starting to target a little bit more. I'm keeping watch on that minimap for when Hupsaiya commits the ground forces. Looks like he's thinking about it now, especially as he catches sight of a bunch of these ground forces for Hamster. He's panned over there. He can absolutely demolish this force, especially as the Drakodons start to come up over here. When does the trigger get pulled? One of the Gladiuses has gone down, but look at how powerful those bounces can be. You got to be within range to actually channel the bounce. I think at any point, Hupsaiya can pull the trigger on that ground force. Hamster looking very worse for wear. He's been caught in the middle of his transition with all of the rogue galleries, with the idea that he's going to go for Vagrants. And that would be a brilliant idea had it been able to foment, but he has no splash damage over here to control this crowd. Meanwhile, the bounce is mostly affecting the infrastructure. Looks like the Vagrants will be able to pop out and maybe start to fight, but another pylon has to be placed to keep everything powered. And meanwhile, the front line has fallen on the natural. GG called, and Hamster is going to go down 0-1 in the set. Looks like a little bit of exploratory questioning here, as Hupsaiya has been able to take the game. I have 33 workers, but none in my natural. There you go, a little bit of info. And by the way, the reason why, basically this is like a one base all-in, right? You're not really an all-in because he does transfer behind it, but the reason why Hupsaiya types like with no spaces is because he uses a auto hotkey script to replace his space bar with middle mouse button, and that's so that he can use space bar to use the drag feature that we have implemented in the game, that Veek was able to implement. We just haven't been able to come up with a way to remap that key yet, because programmatically speaking, that is just more dumb than it should be when you're dealing with a closed source game that you have to reverse engineer, memory hack, etc. But there you go. That's why he types like that. It's very funny. I think it's great. Anyway, we will move on to game number 2 in just a moment. And we are into game numero dos. Hupsaiya has been AFK. Hupsaiya, you're AFK. Hupsaiya. Okay, he's good. This isn't StarCraft 2. The game doesn't play itself for you. You got to actually task your workers to move. You Got to do that. All right. Hamster in the top left, Hupsaiya in the bottom right. We are on the Purgatory. And honestly, even though it's a mirror matchup where every little bit counts, and you don't want to be AFK for the first 20 seconds of the game, or however long it was, I still think Hupsaiya will be fine. I think he'll probably be okay. I wonder if who is starting this lobby. If it was Hupsaiya starting, then there's no excuse. But if it was Hamster starting, then was there BM? Question mark. Now, I will say, though, Hamster is like such a class act. He's the kind of guy to just be like, he just wants to play and he wants good fights, and he doesn't even seem to care if he wins or loses. And yet he still goes all the way to the finals. He's only been in 2 completed tournaments thus far, and in both of them he made it to second place, made it to the grand finals. The first time, it was a 4-0 stomp in favor of Mystery Meat, although that is a little bit of a fraudulent description because the games were getting better, and Mystery Meat was random and got Protoss every game. So that was very fortuitous since Hamster was weakest versus Protoss, and he was playing Zerg in both of these tournaments, mind you. In the second one, he goes Zerg. He makes it through the Murderer's Row on the final day of play. He plays Elimination 3, he plays the lower final, and he plays the grand final. It's 3-1, 3-1, and then 3-4. Nebleim clutching out the victory in the last moment there. So many people think that Hamster was actually the better player overall on the day. He just got... Can't on this map. Only one. Yes. Oh, they're playing on an older version with the ridge... The ridgeless version of the Purgatory. That's how far back this goes. God damn, what a blast from the past. But yeah, as I continue... yeah, it does. When it was a situation where the second round, right, the second tournament, and he goes to that Murderer's Row, dude, it was crazy. Everybody, I could not believe what I was seeing. Hamster was going to make it happen. And some of the games that Hamster had a shot in as well, mind you, it was really good. Like, he was very close to breaking Nebleim on Nitro Valley. Like, ridiculous Zeth quasi-Hydra kind of all-in moment. I'm pretty sure that was the composition anyway. It's just crazy stuff, dude. Hamster won everybody's heart. Hamster's got a lot of heart. I'll say it like that. Now, will he have enough to take down Hupsaiya in the series? We'll have to find out. I don't even know if he'll have enough to take down Hupsaiya in this series. But you know what? We're going to find out. I like this little spread from Hupsaiya's Zealots. Catching his opponent. Forward Warden yet again. I guess because this map doesn't have the extra gas, he can't do a extra Stargate move, right? Oh, he's saying he's doing it anyway. He's doing it anyway, so that's kind of interesting. And the Zealot will get in. Unfortunately for Hupsaiya, his Stargate has been scouted. So that's a little awkward. See if he can try to track down and catch this race car, box him in. No! He pulls the moves on him! Hamster. Just like a hamster in real life. Just cannot be caught. Got out of the cage. He's out. See ya. All right, his expansion coming. Looking good. But at some point, have to make legions. Does he? I don't know. I feel like the answer to that is not actually, because Hupsaiya has found the counter. I don't know what it is, but he keeps telling me he has found it. So I look forward to seeing that tested later. Maybe Hamster also knows it by now. Maybe everybody knows it. And that means that nobody will build Legionnaires, and then somebody will build Legionnaires, and it'll wrap back around to being really good again. Hupsaiya going to go for his own expansion, although it's going to be a little bit late. Third gate here for Hamster, who's going into Dracodons for the purposes of building up those Gladiuses, dealing with those Gladiuses, which are starting to pop out already. Mass gas mining over here from Hamster as he takes his natural. Embassy started over here for additional harvests. The, something that's been criminally underused so far in when Protosses are taking to the field, especially considering we have so many Protosses, nobody is building artisans. Hupsaiya did it a little bit in practice versus, I think it was EUD, in some PvT practice before his series against Newt. But they didn't get played. I don't think they've been built in a tournament game. And we saw them in that FFA that I casted recently, which was pretty funny. But, nobody wants to build them for whatever reason. Zealots carve down the Legionnaire nice and easy in the middle of the map. Meanwhile, the rest of the Protoss arsenal is trying to stage a defense versus the mass Zealots. One Gladius going to charge in. There's no defenses over here. Gotta start watching out for that, right? Nothing can be defended over here. I feel like Hupsaiya can still win this position. I mean, he's got so many zealots. He's already starting to kill off workers. Ahead by 8 workers now. Make it more. Yeah, he's keeping with the workers to channel those bounces in. That's a good move as well. Man, he's just so far ahead in economically now. Off of the one Gladius that should have been telegraphed by Hamster since he scouted. With 12 zealots, he's going to see if he can make it happen. Already starting to soften up the Drakidans over here. Where is Hamster's reaction? He's got to get those other zealots to the front line. Maybe pull the workers at this point as well. The Gladius is starting to get focused down. Indeed, it will end up falling. But can you deal with the mass zealot? Hamster saying zealot first is bad. GG. Okay. It's not going to be bad enough, apparently. Good enough for a Hupsaiya victory. And all right. We've got one more match to cast between these two. And so far, the practice games have been going Hupsaiya's way. We'll see what happens. We are headed to Sideshow for map number 3. We've got Hamster in the bottom right and Hupsaiya in the top left. So a bit of a mirror image of the last match. Hope you guys are enjoying this set of matches here and just generally how the games have been going. Obviously, these ones are a little bit on the faster side, but these were the games that I found between Hupsaiya and Hamster, and I feel like it's always a nice little opportunity when you know that there's going to be a tournament match featuring these guys. It's always good to see if we can get a preview, a taster of what's to come, even if, yes, indeed, the matches are super old compared to where we are now. They're almost a month old. In fact, by the time the games are cast, no, I guess that's not true, because these are the 17th. I was thinking about when I casted that PVZ between Nebelheim and the Shambler, and that was a match played on the 10th, and today is indeed the 9th of May, so I was going to mention that, but not actually true for this set. But they're still getting up there. They're grandpa games, played when the stars were young. Let's see if that ends up being the case. More and more people are popping in to join us all the time. I'm very grateful for the ability to cast some higher level games as a result, because some of the people who are coming in here are, you know, fairly well accomplished players, right? So we'll see how that one breaks down in the future. I would love, absolutely love to, you know, even though it would be bittersweet if, you know, people like Nebelheim and the Shambler can't hack it at the top anymore, can't cut it because everybody else is just too damn good and we start getting the Koreans in or whatever. But it would still be pretty cool. And even the Shambler has said before, like, I can't wait to 6-pool the Koreans or whatever. He wants to cheese them. He wants to cheese them. Second gate now a little bit later for Hupsaiya. It's been pretty much the way that things have gone, that Hamster has gone for the faster structures, whereas Hupsaiya has gone for a little bit more of a methodical play. Playing to the strengths of the map, perhaps, considering this map does have a reasonable rush distance. It's also very easy to wall this off. That's something that we saw between the Shambler and Hupsaiya on this very map. Moving around looking for proxies. Doesn't find anything. I have noticed that there's a astounding lack of proxies. Calypso has helped me out on that front. He's been proxying Stargates, and even Hupsaiya proxied to Stargate. So, you know, it can be good, even in mirrors. But I'm also kind of grateful that it's not like the meta way to play. Like in StarCraft 2, as far as I understand, PvP is just like, all right, who's going to proxy more successfully? And, you know, very rare are the 1 or 2 base plays that develop into a more macro-oriented game. Maybe that's a little bit different now since they changed the sentry and stuff, but trying to catch this race car, not exactly going to be very successful in that front. Instead, just going to go ahead and catch the guy coming in elsewhere. And there he goes down. Third gate now. Can he stop the scout from seeing the third gate? Doesn't look like the answer is yes. Just continuing to waypoint around the whole map. Oh, but he forgot to right-click one more time, and that will be his death. Zealots, as our follow-up here for Hamster. He only made the 2 Legionnaires, scouted around, caused some mild disturbance, and look at that, a canceled third gate. Hupsaiya calling him out, saying, oh, you're going to be worried that there's going to be a heavy military presence, maybe I'll just expand. The problem is, Hamster has his Nexus already halfway done. So that's something that Hupsaiya cannot know, as he has not scouted. He's going to move across with the 7 Legionnaires and make some more behind it, but he's saving up for his own natural expansion, I believe. It could be a fast tech structure, too. He's got a lot of Vespene banked up. Maybe an early Argosy. No, early Prostration stage. This could end up being like a Mind Tyrant timing, where he just takes control of the enemy forces. We'll have to see if that one plays out that way. Hupsaiya himself predicted that he would 3-1 the Hamster The Hamster, the Shambler, the Hamster. He said he would 3-1 Hamster and 3-0 Shambler. So that's pretty funny if that ends up happening. Or if anything else happens, you can say, haha, you didn't predict correctly. All right, there's a lot of Legionnaires over here. 7, in fact. They're very slippery, as demonstrated by Hamster earlier. 2 more coming on in. 4 Zealots here. We've got some Legionnaires being made from those idle gateways. Now trying to tickle the Nexus. Not being too effective. Defensive Warden being come up, but it's 35 seconds to make that thing. You gotta watch out. The Zealots now being focus fired. More Legionnaires popping out here for Hamster. The reinforcement point. I don't even know if that prostration stage is going to be necessary, guys. We've got a 3rd gateway coming, but the Warden only halfway done. Rest of the Zealots falling despite their armor. Not able to make anything else happen. The Warden is going to have to get canceled. The workers are being pulled off the line. At the very least, Hamster has more worker production thanks to his embassy. But now his pylon is in danger of being depowered. And all he's been making are Legionnaires. Yep, that prostration stage was not necessary. And a Mind Tyrant gets started just at the nick of time, so that we can see that that was Hupsaiya's plan. But GG is called, and these ones, they were a little bit more on the one-sided side. I was hoping for some closer matches between the two of them, but what it did demonstrate is that at this point in time, the meta has been Legionnaires. And I don't think we're going to see the same thing in the future. So the question that I pose for the audience at home is, who is going to be better equipped to adapt to what is now the mirror gameplay that apparently doesn't feature Legionnaires nearly as much? Is it going to be the Shambler who waits in the lower final? Is it going to be Hupsaiya or Hamster who are going to be duking it out in that Elimination 3 game? Well, we'll get nice and early answers to those questions when we cast that match. So stay tuned. It's 1 p.m. Eastern on Saturday. I hope to see you guys there. GG's.